Hey everybody, we have a Sony PVM, and before I get started going around and looking at it, let's power it on. Got a pretty good screen here, but there's no color at all on it. We've got just hues of gray. Turn the brightness up. You can see we got all colors registering, but we don't actually have any color. Now this CRT turns on and tests out fine as far as functionality and getting an image on the screen, but it doesn't have any color. Let's go around and look at the back. As I said, this is the PVM 8040 Trinitron AC120V 50/60 Hertz. And the only thing we have on the back is our AC input. We have a vertical hold adjustment knob, and then we have a single line input. This line input has Y/C or S video in or composite video in, and then we have mono audio in. This symbol right here means that both these outputs are terminated, so you don't need to add any kind of 75 ohm termination to these. It's auto terminating. Alright, so that's how our signals are getting into this CRT, but the color issue has nothing to do with any of that. It's actually a problem inside the CRT on the color processing board on this side of the monitor. This is the bottom of the CRT. We will find important information down here, including the manufacture date. This is May of 1997, and other information. And then if we look right in here under this portion of the grill marks on the bottom plate, you'll notice there's that mono audio speaker right there. And it actually aims down at the bottom of the CRT, so it's bouncing straight down and hitting the table in this instance, and then hopefully pushing that audio out that way. Now this PVM is one of the easier ones to get inside of. All I've done is removed all those side screws which are mounted here, and then you can tilt this a little bit and pull back, just slide that off, and it safely comes out of the way. This is a pretty standardized shell that Sony would have used on all 8/9-inch PVMs from this time period, no matter the model. And now we can easily look inside of our CRT and identify some stuff. I've worked on the CRT so many times, I know what our problem is. It's going to be a couple of potentiometers down in this area of the color board over here, which is the CAD board, and this is on the right side of the CRT when you're looking at it on the front. Thankfully there are screws here and here. We'll remove each of those, and then there's some tabs right here that if we push this in, hopefully we can get this tray to flip down and open up, and then we can access this board a little bit easier. So if I look in here, there's that cable. Just give it a good pull and it'll come out. And then we have this, which actually goes over here and to our neck board. This is sending our color information over into the CRT itself. So we can disconnect it from either end. Probably, whoops, right there is the simplest. Well, normally there's some potentiometers over in here that cause this issue. There's only one in here right now, and it's this one right here. So yeah, most likely our problem's coming from, since we only have the one potentiometer, this potentiometer is probably causing us the issues. Now if you have a better PVM or a bigger, 8041Q, it'll have both of them and have a lot more parts populated in here. But this one only has this one. So we're going to do a temporary fix to see if that works. We'll try that first, and then we need to just ultimately replace that potentiometer and install a piece of protection capacitor behind it. But first off, let's try the temporary fix on here and see if we can get color booted back up in this thing. So there's our potentiometer, and let's try our temporary fix, which is going to be to just reflow solder on the back of this component. And I'll zoom in. Somebody at some point reflowed solder on a component next to that, I can see. But that's not the part I'm after. The part I'm after is right here. Sometimes heating up this solder will make it work, because either the solder goes bad or the part is just gums up, I guess, possibly. And heating it up makes it start to work again. So let's just try this temporary fix. I'm just going to go in here and introduce some fresh solder on CV101. So let's get in here and touch the leg of the component. Yeah, that's some pretty dodgy solder right there. Okay. And then we'll let it sit for a second. We'll do the same thing on this other leg. There you go. Now, if you have the other potentiometer installed, you can reflow the legs of that one as well, just like this. But that's all we have, so we don't have to actually do that. But that's how you would do that if you did have the other component in there. And that should be it for the temporary fix if it works. Let's go throw this back in and see what happens. All right, I've remounted the CAD or the B board here, and I've reconnected the 3 cables over here, and then there's this cable which goes to, again, my socket board, my neck board, my CRT socket board right there. That all needs to be connected. This ground connection, you can leave that disconnected to run this test. It will not prevent the monitor from working. And there it is, just so you can see we've not changed anything else. That's just our part. You can even see the fresh solder has come through to the top side on the non-populated part. And even on the populated part, we can see fresh solder on the sides where it's gone through. We definitely have some nice solder welds right there. And that's really it. Everything's back in here. We're going to connect the same signals. That's what we've got. The exact same cabling. And the Super Nintendo should already be powered on. And let's just see what happens. I'll turn the lights down. And here we have our screen coming back. And look at that. Would you look at that? Check that out. Awesome. So there you can see we have green, blue, red, yellow. And let's go down here now. On the front of the CRT, we do have some controls. These 2 will adjust color as far as chroma and phase. And then you have contrast over here. And then brightness. So those will all 4 be usable. And then we have our volume, and that's it. Wow. Okay, so see, the temporary fix did work here. I call it temporary because it could just not work at any moment because that potentiometer is still a fail point. So that is the temporary fix. If you don't have the part and you want to go ahead and just get color back, you could do that, and it may never give you another issue. It may work for 5 hours and burn out. I have no idea. What we're going to do, though, is we're going to actually do the permanent fix next, because we want to make sure that this issue is just non-existent anymore. All right, there you go. We have all of our colors on the screen. I've got everything turned up really bright. There is a bit of a hot spot over here where it appears we have some purple, so there may be another issue with purity on this CRT. And yeah, see, we have some purity hot screen up here. So I'll either have to do a degaussing wand on that and see if we can't clear that up. Also, let's see. Yeah, see there? See how we get that change right there? That's a purity issue. The red screen really shows that nicely. Now, sometimes this can be an effect of the room, so let's rotate this CRT and see if it gets any better or worse, or if it pretty much stays the same. It's kind of getting worse as I move it, but it's not actually getting better. Let's go over here and continue to move this around and see what impact that will have. Because this whole cart is on wheels, or this work table, so that I can do this stuff pretty easily. And yeah, it just seems to get kind of worse, where maybe where we had it originally was one of the better spots for it. All right, so there's a good look at the screen purity problems in that corner. If we look back here, you can definitely see we already have a purity magnet in that corner. So adding another magnet is probably not going to be a huge help here. So we're going to have to try to use a secret weapon or wand to try to fix up this problem. All right, here's the secret weapon. It is the GC Tool Computer Monitored Television Degaussing Coil. Heavy duty guy right here. Eliminates magnetic fields in picture tubes. Indispensable for color monitor and color TV service. It's in a 13-inch high-impact plastic housing, 8-foot power cord, de-energizer button, and all... Whoa! All that good stuff right there. All right, here it is. It's 1 minute on, 30 minutes off. What happens is you'll push this button and it'll vibrate, and it just makes this huge magnetic field right in your fingertips. And you can tell that it's sending so much power through itself that if you just left it running, it would catch fire and burn itself out. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a couple of runs with this thing right in front of the CRT, where I'll do a special wand pattern. So what I'm going to do is I'm first just going to hit the button a couple times, make sure it's working, and you watch this screen and it should disrupt the colors pretty heavily. See that? Isn't that crazy? Okay, so now I'm going to disrupt the colors by introducing a lot more magnetism. Then I'm going to expand and make a circle pattern, and we've reset our screen many times because we're losing power. I've got too many things plugged in when I'm using that. That's too much power. So let's see. It still did the balancing, and it looks like it got rid of all that color problem. Look at that. Yeah, wonderful. So even though we ran out of power and we started having our CRT kind of go in and out, the CRT wasn't losing power. Actually, it was the SNES console was resetting, I think, because of all the power being drained off the circuit. Anyway, there it is. We've got a beautiful, pure screen right there. Look at that. No more purple corner. So we fixed two problems. So this is how we're going to fix our problem over here permanently. We're going to replace this potentiometer. And again, if we had two potentiometers, we could replace both of them. This is the DigiKey part that I purchased. I've had these for a while, for a couple of years, looks like since 2023. There's the part number. This is a capacitor trimmer, 3 to 10 picofarad, 100 volts, and made in Switzerland. So we're going to use this as the replacement trim capacitor in there. We'll just pull the other one and install this one. And then on the back side, we're going to install one of these capacitors right here. This is a ceramic capacitor, 5 picofarads, 50 volts, and no polarity. It's just a single little cap. We're going to put that along the 2 points on the back after we install the new cap. After we install the new trimmer, I'm sorry, and then we'll put that capacitor on the back, and then hopefully that will clear our problem up for good. Let's get in here and remove this potentiometer. Just add, whoop, I'm gonna use my desoldering iron. And just try to do it like that. Just try to hit the legs of the potentiometer only. There we go, whoops. There we go. Now it's nice and loose. Just flip it over. Should be easy to remove. And there we go. Out with the old. Now this spot here is marked and shaped for the way you can install it. So just install the new one right in that spot right there. I have fat fingers, so it's not always the easiest for me to get them installed, these parts. So maybe I can use this set of tweezers and get that in there nicely, hopefully, like that. Okay, flip it over. And then here's our component legs. I like to bend those out a little bit so it'll hold itself. Let's see, maybe I can use this. That's better. There we go. So I've bent those legs out and flared them out a little bit more so it's holding itself. It's not been soldered yet. I'm going to fire up my soldering iron. And actually, before I add any solder, I'm going to go ahead and install this capacitor in between on the back side. So this will just be going between the two of them. Right in there, kind of like that. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to use it like I'm going to hold this in place. Hopefully I can keep everything together, and then I'll install this one side, and then I'll do the second side. So we'll do it like this first. Just like that. Okay, that's good. Now don't worry, I'll come back and I'll reflow the solder on that to make sure that is a very nice weld. What I'm going to do in the meantime is I'm going to trim that leg away, bend this down, get it to right there. And what I don't want is anything to be touching. That's gonna be good. Maybe if I can just get that up and bent a little bit more. Oh yeah, look at there. Do it like that. That's right in the hole there. Come in here and introduce some fresh solder. Some heat. Oh yeah, look at that. That looks great. Okay, that side's all nice and welded. We'll do the same thing over here. Excellent. Excellent. Let's take a quick look. See how everything went. We don't have anything actually touching where it shouldn't be. That's all good. Let's check the other side and take a look at our potentiometer. Right there. Everything looks good right there. Now before I finish up with this board, I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to reflow solder on all the connection points. This point, these 2 points right there, and then there's a third one up here, right here. And all of these are connection points where other cables go into this. And I'm going to reflow solder on there just to add to the durability of this board. And I'll also reflow solder over here on all the potentiometers. You can see that solder just starts to break down. And what will happen is you could go in there and make an adjustment and it might actually break one of these welds and you'll have an open circuit, and then those adjustments may not work or you may lose some functionality. So I'm going to go ahead and reflow that, and then I'll clean the board, and then we'll test everything we've done. All right, there's the serviced board. I've got it reinstalled with the new trim potentiometer right there, and also all the solder reflow and the cleaning done, and we have color. And it's just going to sit here and we're going to let it run for a little bit, but everything is good. You can see the reflowed solder on those connection points, and then there's our little 5 picofarad capacitor, the blue chiclet style capacitor installed on the back side of that potentiometer. And now can move on to further servicing this little CRT. I just spent about the last hour removing all of these electrolytic capacitors on this list. I just recorded the cap kit as I did it, so I pulled every capacitor, and as I did I recorded the value and wrote it down, and that's what I'll use for my replacement parts. But I wanted to show you the board minus all the electrolytic capacitors in here. I've cleaned it with some isopropyl alcohol and brushed away any kind of residue that was left on any of the pads, and I'll be able to get some good new capacitors in there, and the flux will flow along with the solder really nicely. Give me a good bond on all my solder points, and then this board will be ready to be put back inside the set. Just some look at the back side here after it's being cleaned. Now once I get the capacitors installed, I'll also reflow the solder on all these potentiometers over here, because those are the potentiometers I will use to adjust things. And since I have it here, maybe I can show you what those look like a little bit better. So those are variable potentiometers, variable resistors, each one of those. So if you see there, that one says horizontal size, pin phase, pin amp, vertical angle, vertical linearity, picture bow, video phase, and vertical size. What's this one say? This one is horizontal frequency, and their vertical center, that larger one right there. So that's how you make your adjustments, is using a screwdriver, and you change that, or you spin those variable resistors, and it gives you a change on your image. Alright everybody, I have fully finished my restoration. I'll walk you through what I've done. Some of the things you already know about. You already know that we've replaced all the capacitors in some of the boards and reflowed solder on other boards. So just to give you a rundown of what's been done, this is the deflection board again. It's been recapped, it's been reflowed on solder and quality control checked. It's in fully restored mode. Basically, it's had everything redone to it. Behind there in this area we have the neck board, also completely rebuilt, and then the power supply. The power supply has been recapped and rebuilt also. And then you saw the work we did on the color board, and it's been adjusted and running and tested, and everything's working great on it. But it's a lovely set for that 8-inch CRT. So now the CRT's all put back together. I put the screws back in here, and I've cleaned everything else out inside of this. Now this tube will work with all the other 8-inch PVMs. If you need to use a tube from this, just remember that this is the 250 line tube. So it's the same one that's in the 8041Q and the 42Q, but the other higher end ones have the 450 TV line tube. So this tube will work in those other high-end CRTs, but it's just always going to have the 250 lines on the actual tube itself. One last thing I kind of want to show was, if you get and you want to clean inside of here, the easiest thing to do is remove the 4 screws, 2 in each side on this bezel. And if you have a bezel problem, you can really just pull this off just like that. There's actually no cords or anything on this one because there's no tally light. Sometimes there will be a tally light right there mounted, but this bezel also, you can see where it's been used or can be used for other PVMs. It just has this one has it taped off for the specific build out used on the 8040. So now I can get in here and clean the buttons on the HA board, clean the power switch, and clean up the CRT. Well, it looks like Cole has joined us today for a little finale. It's been a while since Cole's made an appearance. Just wanted to say hello. How you doing down there, buddy? Enjoying your bone in the shop? I know. I got the bright light on you. Anyway, just want to finish things up on this 8040. I've been having it run some final checks, done my final cleanup. There you go. Little volume coming out of that speaker at the bottom of the set right there. It's another nice thing about that stand. Alright guys, so that's going to finish up our restoration on the Sony 8040. I appreciate your time today. Please know that if you're looking to have a CRT restored like this one and worked on, it doesn't have to be a PVM. You can check out my Patreon. I'll have a link in the description of this video. That's how everybody that gets a CRT service gets it done. They go through my Patreon, and then you can connect with me and get your CRTs in the shop here, just like this Sony 8040 belonged to Patreon member Dylan. Thank you, Dylan, for sending it in. I'll be sure to pack it up nicely and send it on back out to the west coast of the United States, where it's going from here. My shop is in Virginia, so if that helps you know kind of where things are. Also, we do have shipping services available through U-Ship, or if it's a smaller PVM like this one, it's pretty easy to pack it correctly and do ground shipping to save a little money. But that, again, is going to do it for today. I appreciate you guys spending this time watching it today with me. If you enjoyed this video, please do me a favor and drop a like. And also, I want to do one last thing before I get out of here. I need to do a cleanup or housekeeping. The Sony FV300 that I did a review for in the last video, I was wrong on the chassis. It's the BA5D chassis. I know this is a weird time to end this, but I want to make sure you get this right. So the BA5D chassis actually is RGB moddable. I said this one was not, but it turns out it is. At least that's what the documentation is telling me. Now, that CRT was not here to be RGB modded, but I may have another FV300 that's on the larger size come in soon to get RGB modded, and if that's the case, I'll make a new video about that to accompany the deep dive that I did in the video before this one. Anyway, thanks again, everybody. I'll see you guys next time with some more retro content.